One of the things that I loved the most about them was that their music wasn't just aggression and rage and hate and anti-establishmentarianism and all those kinds of things. It was, but they were damn good writers.
That was the voice of the amazing Lisa deBettencourt. What can I say about Lisa? Lisa is amazing. Lisa has not only had a long career leading design in-house and with her own company, Forge Harmonic. Lisa is an author. Lisa's a professor. Lisa is one of the co-founders of the Interaction Design Association. Lisa is simply just rad. And this conversation today is one of my favorites because we not only talk and hint about a few of those things, but we talk about the really, really important stuff, which is Lisa loves Metallica. And she plays the drums. We talk about parenting, all these types of things. And it was a lovely, lovely conversation. We gathered here actually at my house. Lisa only lives about 2 hours away and she managed to come up. We had some lunch. We recorded this podcast. And then we went outside and picked some pears off the tree. It was fantastic. I'm so excited to share this with you and to chat about Metallica, amongst other things, with our dear friend Lisa. For those of you enrolled in Chief Design Officer School, you're doing amazing. I'm so impressed every time we go through these cohorts and these lessons. You teach me so much, and it really is important to say that you are doing fantastic, fantastic work. And for those involved in the Second Wave Dive community, again, the way that you are coming and supporting each other, really supporting your peers, supporting each other, being quite vulnerable and sharing what you are going through and the types of progress and updates that you are sharing is so helpful to us all. We are really, really appreciative of that. We've got some exciting announcements coming up pretty soon about some new courses, some different varieties of courses. And if you're subscribed to the Second Wave Dive newsletter, you will hear about that first. But enough talking about me and all that stuff. On to my lovely conversation with Lisa deBettencourt. I think this is the first time I've seen a human like I don't
that you're not related to,
that I'm not related to, or it isn't my neighbor in a long time.
In person, because we are in person.
We are in person. We're in side by side rooms, but yeah, it's been a wonderful. I got to have lunch. We actually got to meet for the first time.
Yeah, we actually got to meet for the first time, which was super exciting.
Yeah, and we're relatively close. Like I could just come down and it's almost like a commute. It's not that bad.
It wasn't that bad coming here today. It wasn't that bad at all.
Yeah. I imagine that we'll talk about your playlist too at some point, but
yes, absolutely.
I was thinking about it because we've known each other for a few years. I certainly have known who you are for a long time, just because that's how the internet works and all these things.
In our little industry where everyone knows everyone, especially if you've been around for a minute.
That's right.
Which both of us have been around for a minute or two.
We're like getting into boomer kind of territory of, yeah.
Get off my lawn.
But I was trying to think that we've known each other for a while. It's all been virtual. It's all been online. I have no idea how we actually met and connected because we're part of social media stuff, but then we have really amazing people that we're friends with in common, like Maria and Ariba. And I was racking my brain going, where did we actually meet? Do you know how we met and started talking to each other like one-on-one? Do you remember?
I have absolutely no idea. But I do recall our first Zoom.
Oh, you do?
Call.
What happened in our first Zoom call?
I think I was asking you questions about some of the stuff that you do around strategy. It was early Second Wave Dive days. It was early days for my business.
Right.
And I think you probably had said something in some particular Slack channel somewhere because we have so many in common. And I think it started with that. And I don't know if you were like, hey, if anyone wants to talk about this, let's talk. I don't know if Jason Massoud was in the mix there too.
Maybe,
I feel like he was.
Yeah, we know. Jason's another great connection. I've only known him virtually. I've never met Jason in person.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Same.
But yeah, somewhere along the way, we sort of diverged. We started chatting because I think while most of our friends have kind of graduated into the coaching or consulting realm, we were like, no, small business. Like, I'm going to go do something else.
Right. We're going to hire people and have,
Right. Going to be a boss and think about like LLCs versus S Corps.
And like estimated taxes and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh. That's another podcast episode of
it really
making
is.
decisions based on what you think your estimated taxes might be. But
it's been fun.
When we started chatting, most of our interactions now, we do chat one-on-one a lot. I would say that you're probably one of the people that I talk to most around this unique area of really being a small business owner and taking work that way. And we do have these great little groups of friends that we meet with on like a biweekly basis. But somewhere along the way, we started talking about an affinity and a love affair of heavy metal.
Yes. Yes, we sure did.
And I don't know how that started, but I think you used like an emoji of, horns or something like this. And
yeah. Well, it's sort of been a coming out story for me over the past 5 or so years. So it could have been that I just started putting myself out there, my true me out there a lot more. And so folks that have also that same love, interest, experience, right, in their formative years have been attracted to that. And, I've met a lot of other folks, other designers, design leaders or whatever have sort of like poked their head out of the shrubs and they're like, oh, hello. Right. Someone else like me. Let's talk about this. Yeah. So it could have been something like that, but I've been gradually sharing more of that part of me more publicly.
So, I mean, we're going to talk about heavy metal today.
Let's do it.
All right. Because I totally just want to go and spend a lot of time talking about that. Now, I know how I got into heavy metal, and it was because of a neighbor. We can talk about that story, but I'm very curious of how you got introduced to like heavy metal as a concept, as a genre. How did that come to be?
I remember the day vividly, right? It was just because it's such a powerful experience. Middle school bus. Brian Dow gets on the bus with his giant boombox over the shoulder, rocking Master of Puppets.
Oh my God.
And my best friend, Zoe, and I were like looking at each other going, what is that? And I want more of it. And it was day after day after day of that. And, then we migrated to the back of the bus with all the cool kids.
Where
and
the
we're like,
where
the boombox was, right? As far away from the driver as possible so that you didn't get yelled at.
Yeah.
And and then just more music just came out. More artists showed up and more, but it was predominantly Metallica at the time. Right.
So interesting. I got, so I had the bus experience, but maybe this was like, cause I grew up in New Jersey, it was Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
And I think Beastie Boys, like those were the three. It was all,
I have some great Beastie Boys stories.
Right. The sort of same year, early MTV, but at the same time, we had recently moved from Arizona to New Jersey. So I predominantly grew up in New Jersey, and the house that I lived next to, there were 3 boys, all of whom were older, but the youngest of those boys was 2 years older than I. And so it was
Yeah.
around 4th grade when 4th, 5th grade when people were bringing boom boxes on. But my neighbor, Dave Parker, amazing, played video games. And I was like, I'm all about video games. And I walked into his house and he was playing Megadeth. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
This is not what's playing in my house.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I can hear dun 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 dun. I can hear the Megadeth song right now in my head too. Yeah.
Right. So
Peace sells and who's buying?
Exactly. Now I wasn't allowed to I didn't really tell my parents that this is secretly why I was going over to Dave Parker's house. It just literally a driveway away.
Yeah.
Were your parents cool with you listening to the metal?
Oh, absolutely not. Because that was back in the day of the the record. You'd get the record player
Right.
that had the 2 tapes built in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could record tape. You could do tape to tape recording, or you
Yep.
could do record to tape recording, and then you could make mixtapes, and you could stick it in your Walkman, and you can listen to this whole collection of music on various road trips or the bus or whatever.
Right.
Never, or share or whatever. And the more that I started to play that on my record player, we'd go down to the Strawberries record store and spend half the day picking out the one album that we could afford and bring that home. And when I started to do that and they started to hear it, they were not happy at all. Cause my parents were 8-track, in the living room listening to the Carpenters, who I also loved, right? I loved the Carpenters.
Right.
Some of the most beautiful music, but that was a stark contrast to the kinds of things that I was listening to in my room down the hall, which we had a tiny little house and wasn't too far away for them to be turn it down. I mean, those, you think about those, you talked about MTV earlier, but the music videos where there's the classic parent, shut it down, turn it down, shut it off. I mean, that was totally my parents.
I kind of did it in secret.
Yeah.
Like the Walkman, and would take those cassettes that somebody had given me that I didn't really like and put tape over.
Right.
Because you could re-record over.
You could.
Right?
The tab would pop out, so you'd put some tape over it,
and you could re-record.
That's right.
Right. Sony probably didn't like that very much, but I would then borrow tapes from my neighbor Dave Parker and make my own mixtapes, and then just kind of quietly in my room listen, because we were not a house that had big speakers and whatnot. I introduced that later, but
it's funny because you talk about your next door neighbor, but I mentioned my best friend Zoe, and her dad was a musician, and we would go over there all the time too. And she had the same sort of setup as I did. And we would just spend the day. We'd get an album.
Oh yeah.
And you just spend the day listening to the whole album over and over and over again until you knew it by heart.
Right.
You knew the lyrics, you knew the melody, you knew the bass line, you knew all of it.
And were you also watching MTV? Were you doing that as well?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We were come home from school and, we watched tons of MTV. I mean, Headbangers Ball, man, Saturday night, Headbangers Ball, we were watching it. And I'd be at her house, she'd be at my house, depending on whose parents were in a better mood. We would get to stay up and watch it because it started really late. It started 11 or something.
It started 11. And I would stay up late, and I was usually the only person still awake at that point, but I would just stay downstairs, especially during the summer. The summer was when my parents would get a little more relaxed around when I needed to be asleep or whatnot. But I can remember just being downstairs in our little TV room and waiting for 11 o'clock to come on. So you were listening at home, learning the lyrics.
Yeah.
Did you start going to shows at this time too?
Oh, I have a great story on that. So yeah, so one other thing too is as more of this kind of music sort of came into my life and I started expanding and learning and playing different artists, you know, the posters, right? The whole poster thing on my walls was like no more, you know, no more Michael Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
no more whatever, you know, popular.
Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, I wasn't really a Cyndi Lauper
No.
fan, but it was more like Kirk Cameron and like all these like boy
Oh,
actors and like all that stuff, right? When I'm like
teen.
10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like 10, 11 to Metallica, a big Metallica posters, Iron Maiden, Anthrax, Lita Ford.
Wow.
I can't even think of some of the other ones. Megadeth was definitely up there. And instead of buying those teeny bop magazines, I was buying, God, I remember the name of that one magazine that we would all read.
I don't know it either. I wasn't allowed to buy any of that stuff. I didn't
Oh,
have posters on my walls. Like
yeah.
I kind of
There's
grew
some
up in a
crazy
space where I was
pictures.
not really allowed. I snuck a poster on the back of my bedroom door, and I had it up for a while before like
Yeah.
anybody saw it. But
Yeah.
no,
You're testing
everything.
it out.
Yeah, everything was all like in secret undercover.
Yeah.
Did you? So
And
you went to a show?
yeah. So went to the Monsters of Rock show. I think it was my first concert ever.
Wow.
Metallica was playing. I believe it was Monsters of Rock. I have the ticket still from it. It was March 19th, 1989, March
Oh my
16th,
gosh.
1989, something like that. Worcester Centrum, and went to see Metallica. Or maybe it wasn't Monsters of Rock. I think it was just Metallica. Went with my boyfriend at the time,
Wow.
right? And a couple of other friends. And Metallica finished playing. They were, of course, epic, right? And it was just like at that age, you're so impressionable, and it's like you just feel the energy, and everything is just
And
it's just so
they
incredible.
never have a bad show.
No,
They never have a bad show.
no, they don't. Um, and so I had to go to the bathroom. And so Metallica, I was like waited, right? And Metallica was finished playing. So I finally, my boyfriend at the time, we go and try to find the bathroom. And somehow we managed to make our way and wind up outside of the Worcester Centrum
Hmm.
and like behind, like outside of like the, you know, the general area and in the back area where you're not supposed to go.
Right.
Just trying to figure out how to get either we were trying to find it or trying to find our way back. I can't remember. And I'll never forget, we're walking in this little white minivan. Like, I mean, this is the late 80s, right? So
Right.
minivan is, you know,
Very
minivan
different.
is the different, yeah. Is kind of was there. It was like just sitting there, and we look over and it's Lars and Kirk sitting in the thing. And I like froze. I just, my legs stopped working. I couldn't, right? I couldn't move. And I was like, oh my God, that's that's them. And so my boyfriend grabbed me and was like, let's go over and meet them. I'm like, oh, like I can't. And he grabbed my hand and he just walked us over and was like, hey guys, what's up? You know, can we get some autographs? And he had his jean jacket signed, and I had like this
Wow.
pink bandana around my waist as a belt, because that's what you did in the 80s.
Right.
And I was like, I don't have anything to sign, you know, like I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I'm wearing a black Metallica t-shirt. That's not going to be,
Right.
You're not going to get that signed. So I remembered I had this thing around my waist. So I untied it, took it off, and they signed my bandana.
What? So amazing. And I think,
funny.
you know, at the time they were what, in their mid 20s?
Oh yeah.
You know, like I think we forget, but at the time I think a lot of my experiences with bands before, like they were famous but not like famous,
right? And they were
they were
just on the up, like they were just
right.
starting to climb
but they were still like totally approachable and
sure, if you say so.
back.
I was just
right.
I was like, oh my God, my heroes now.
Right.
And I'm, you know, I was a big Lars fan. I still am, because I'm a big drumming fan. And
do you drum?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I started, it was my dream to play the drums since I was little. and finally started
Oh my
last
gosh.
year. Yeah,
That's
finally
amazing.
started. Yeah,
My 6-year-old, um, all she wants to do is sing and play the drums.
good for her.
And she's like also the third child, so she's like, nobody's gonna get in my way. Just this like,
Yep.
uh, no, I'm gonna write the rules. I'm going to sing and I'm gonna play the drums, and that's it.
Good for
And
her.
yeah, yeah.
Good for her.
So now you're playing the drums.
Yeah, so my oldest, a bunch of years ago, there's a big band culture in the town that we're in.
Hmm.
And my oldest, they get to a certain age, I think it was fifth or sixth grade, and they get to choose what instrument they want to play. And it's no longer just violin or flute. They have a lot more options. And so percussion was one of them. And he wanted to do that really badly.
Cool.
And to buy just a simple snare drum and like a bell, the bell kit or whatever, is like hundreds of dollars.
Right.
So I called up a friend of mine who's been a musician for as long as, well, definitely longer than I've known him, but pretty much most of his life. I'm like, can you help me out? Because I want to buy a kit. I'm not just why would I spend all this money on a brand new thing that he's going to use for a year, maybe two, when I can buy a whole kit? And so he helped me on Craigslist get a used kit. He's like, go see this one, go see this one, and go see this one.
Nice.
I think ask these questions, look for this stuff, and then, decide. And so I did. And he helped me find a great, it's not huge. It's a 5-piece kit.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's fun.
Yeah.
And so he played, and then I have 3 boys. So then my second, same thing, up through the school system, and he did the same thing. And now my youngest is next, and they all hammer on it. They all play, and my youngest just like puts on music and just rocks out. He has no idea what he's doing, but
oh my gosh,
he's having a blast.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But it's always been my dream.
Right. And such a different house than what you grew up in.
Oh yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Turn it down. Meanwhile, I'm in the basement. I'm like, okay, guys, if you want to go outside or you want to go somewhere else, now would be the time.
At least
it's going to get loud.
At least carry a beat, to the children. Yeah. Wow. What an amazing experience. Do you still have the bandana?
I've been looking for it. So as like I said, I'm sort of emerging. My old me is emerging, and some of these things started to come back out, right? It's like, oh, where's that bandana? It's got to be somewhere. So I'm on a mission over the next year or so to find it. But yeah, it's got to be around somewhere.
It's got to be around. Yeah, it's somewhere.
Be around somewhere.
Probably
with my luck, it ended up in the wash, but
yeah, or with the Kirk Cameron poster rolled up somewhere.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I'm not going to say anything. I set it on fire.
So,
no.
I don't know.
So just for the concerts, so that was the first, and then it just continued from there. Because once people, especially in high school or junior high, that was high school, we find each other.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there was a huge, cohort of kids that were all in this mindset.
That's actually what I wanted to talk about, because where I grew up, New Jersey, not far from Massachusetts, I imagine it was similar, is that I grew up and there were like different packs of kids, like the prep kids wearing the Bass loafers, the sort of athletes. And then there was a very specific nickname given to people who listen to metal music, wore all black, probably because they smoked.
Stoners?
They
were called stoners in our town.
So we called them burnouts.
Oh,
but like we heard of stoners. I actually went on a trip with kids from Boston my freshman year of high school, and that's where I got introduced to the stoner. Like,
yeah, let's talk about some of the misunderstandings.
right.
Let's talk about some of those things.
Right, because suddenly people like metal music. People who don't, misconceptions, like, oh, it's just aggression, it's just anger,
Yeah.
But like if you actually look at the lyrics, it's like, oh my gosh, no, it is
Yeah.
complete suffering and pain and shame and like all these other things. So were
Yeah.
you then in one of these groups that were like people would be wary of you? Like what was it like to be part of one of these groups?
Yeah, so I grew up in southern New Hampshire, and a small town, and I was pretty creative. I was the yearbook photographer,
Mm-hmm.
and had a whole big creative side of it. I was one of those kids with the dressed in full black, jean jacket, leather jacket, giant hair. I don't know how I don't have lung cancer from the Aquanet that I would
The
bathe
claw.
myself
Did
in.
you have the
I
claw?
didn't have that, no, but I had the perms and the giant hair, big hoop earrings, and yet I was kind of in all the advanced STEM classes, right? They didn't have a
Yeah.
thing called STEM back then, but I was in calculus, in my senior year. I took trig, I took chemistry, advanced chemistry, biology, physics, all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
I was a
Yeah. Yeah.
big nerd, and a wicked metalhead. And a lot of times it was really awkward because people don't know what to do with you when you span these two different these dichotomies, right? It's like
Yeah.
not just you like something that's sort of tangential to that kind of music, but I was just an anomaly. So I'd walk in, to a class at the beginning of the year looking like I did, and there was just all these kind of assumptions coming from the teachers, and I'd sit in the back of the classroom and then I'd get straight A's, and they didn't know what to do with me.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
imagine
they,
the kids didn't either.
no, and
Yeah.
I was friends with a lot of the really smart, National Honor Society, and I was in debate club. I mean, like
Right.
I would ride, like I was in math club too. We would get on buses and we go to other schools and compete with math, like in math.
Yeah.
I mean, how nerdy is that?
I
And
mean,
I'd be
I was
fully
in choir.
decked out in my
Yeah, like I was in a touring choir.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that strange experience of floating between groups that others want to define. How did that affect like you and your own identity and your place?
Yeah. It's really funny, and I want to come back to the lyrics and the misconceptions on that side of it too pretty soon. But I was actually just having a conversation with my son about this the other day. Oddly enough, he's 15. He was at the age when I started to really get into it with the music and the scene, and we had battles of the bands, and we had all kinds of stuff going on. Not just like, not just going to concerts, but it was so local and cultural, and there were so many kids that were into music and playing and whatever. So I definitely had people assume that I was heavy into drugs and heavy into, all the things, and I wasn't at all. And so I think it took a little while for some people that were in some of the these classes that I were in to get to know me. But I floated between a lot of the different groups and really just loved being in those different environments and learning what they did and chatting with them about the things that were interesting to them. And I kind of felt like a chameleon a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because I could shapeshift into these different groups, and really I just loved it. I just loved it. And I wasn't an angry, lonely teen.
Right.
It just so happened that there was a particular cross-section of us that had this kind of music and this kind of shared experience together.
Right. And it spoke to you, and you identified with that as much as you identified with AP Calc.
Yeah. And wanting to go to college and wanting
right.
to get out of that small town and make something of myself.
Right.
Be successul, of course.
Yeah. There's so many parallels of similar things. We've talked about this before, but of even professional life, of like not fitting into any one group, and some people embracing that and some people rejecting that. And when you want to go back to lyrics of like metal, if you're talking about Master of Puppets, you look at those lyrics, and it is completely around internal battles with oneself, addiction. Yeah, so definitely about drugs, but it's not about the sort of glorification, but how
Mm-hmm.
it was this journey where you could sort of see and feel the sadness and the
Yeah.
pain that James is going through,
Yeah.
just really fast.
So, you had mentioned, had mentioned a lot of things around aggression. People assume that it's about aggression and rage, and think about the Rage Against the Machine lyrics. Like the literal chorus is "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me."
Right,
Right?
right.
There's definitely a lot of that, but one of the things that Metallica is my all-time favorite band.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so cliche, but it's true. And one of the things that I loved the most about them was that their music wasn't just aggression and rage and hate and anti-establishmentarianism and all those kinds of things. It was, but they were damn good writers. And
Amazing.
all of their songs had a message of some kind, whether it was against, the Injustice for All album was all about the the unfairness in the judicial system and all those kinds of things. There's a lot of songs around what was happening in the Middle East and the wars
Yep.
that we were sent off to, and
Yep.
experiences of soldiers that were sent off to war, and how they were treated when they were there and how they were treated when they came back. And
Right.
a lot of they're very, very political.
Totally.
And if you sat and listened to the lyrics and read the lyrics, you would start to get a picture of the kinds of things that they were rallying against and the kinds of messages that they were trying to convey, and the kinds of teaching that they were trying to put out there.
Right.
Which was amazing.
Which is amazing, and very ironical in the sense of how people then will use their music now to like support something that they were not, they were writing like against the entire opposite of that. I think like Dee Snider was mentioning that, like, you're playing my songs. These songs were like totally anti-establishment. I'm half Jewish. Like, do you even understand these types of things? And
I mean, Rage Against the Machine is literally, I mean,
right.
It's so politically charged.
Right. And
it was just covered by it's almost like this secret. It's almost like a Trojan horse, because the folks in our next, the generation before us would never listen to it. They wouldn't listen to the lyrics. They wouldn't listen to it because it was just metal, and it was against, it was against their sort of beliefs and whatever. They wouldn't listen to it. And yet here's these secret messages that are getting, played out to all the folks of our age that were really, really into it, and getting a picture of how corrupt the systems are, and how people are just bought off left, right, and center, and not to believe what people say, and a lot of these kinds of things where you're like, oh, actually the real world is kind of awful. And I think, and you have to get ready for that.
Right. And I think that's actually where Headbangers Ball came in, because Headbangers Ball, you would see like these, them come on and they would talk, not play at the aggressive levels. And when you would hear them just as humans, and the conversations that the hosts would then have around the music, it was like, oh my gosh, they're philosophers. They're like poets.
Yes, they're artists.
They're artists.
Yep.
They just, black and long hair is like their preferred medium, these types of things. And I think one of the things that I struggled with as a kid, being that I didn't belong to any group, but yet I could easily just walk into any group, was not knowing where to fit. And so I would sit and watch music and fall in love with not just metal, like all these genres. It was all this like just pure expression, and it would almost go in and out. But then watching Headbangers Ball, and more for the conversations of,
Yeah.
we got the music, but for these conversations of where they're saying the same things that are in my head of being like, I don't really know my place. And this is the only outlet for me to kind of go and find a place. That really, really resonated with me. But I was still very in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even wear black, but I would, like, it was later that I discovered that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a uniform for us, right?
Right,
It was like, especially in high school, where you're like,
right,
yeah, he dressed the part.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. Now, that music was also fundamental to when I became older, so post college, where when I would just work, like just sit in front of a computer and just
Hmm.
work, I would put cans on and just, for 6 to 8 hours straight. And it was the only music that could kind of like get me into this place where I could
Yeah,
really kind of balance this sort of cognitive stuff that I was trying to do while still um, having that creative thing. How has the music continued to play a role for you?
yeah. Well, I mentioned a couple of times my my coming out. College was interesting because, I went to a nerd school, so there were fewer of us that I could really find. I also got into a lot of electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
I danced a lot, when I was really little, and so that was another thread that was throughout my life. So I spent a lot of times going to techno, house, electronic music
I swear
clubs.
we have the same life. My
Are
first
we
job,
twins? Were
my
we like
my
we're
first
separated
job
at
out of
birth?
university was as an event coordinator for a record label, trance record label. I would set up raves and make sure that Armin van Helden showed up and that the lighting was working, and then go
DJ Gene
dance.
and DJ George.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my
we had
gosh!
a blast. We had a blast. And then I'd go to see, Testament at the whatever that was, the Rochester blah blah blah, and with a couple of neighbors that just happened to be in that music as well.
Right.
My next door neighbors were like, "Hey, random day, like we have an extra ticket to a Megadeth concert at the Rochester whatever it was. Do you want to come?" I was like, "Yes, I do."
Hell yes,
So I didn't
yes.
even know these guys. I mean, like literally just moved in or something, right? That was not, thankfully we're still really good, really still friends, but you never know, right?
Right.
Uh, but yeah, so college was interesting. I sort of blended and got some different kinds of music into my repertoire and started listening to other things. But the electronic music that's my go-to when I need to do something that has any
Mm.
kind of brain
Mm-hmm.
power because I can't have lyrics playing.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then it's interesting you talked about working, coming out of school and started working for the first time. I just had this really powerful desire or need, or I don't know what the right word is, but I really wanted to fit in. I wanted to do what I could to make it in the working world. And so I
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
hide that side of me a lot more
Mm-hmm.
and repressed it and cut my hair short and wore the khaki pants, and I just really put that away and shoved it under the bed or wherever it needed to
Mm-hmm.
go, and tried to keep that out of the forefront of my life because I wanted to be recognized for my accomplishments and my capabilities and all those kinds of things. And I
Mm.
felt like that was going to put people off, especially in the corporate world. Everyone's they're just
Right.
so, they're so straight laced, and it just felt like it wasn't the right place for it.
Yeah. They're so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
They're so, and gosh, it resonates so much because it was this like battle of wanting to be validated at the same time of like um of like a fear of being validated for the wrong thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Oh, you're a weirdo.
why
Yeah.
can't I be wicked smart and wear this and do that, and yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that really, really resonates. So you hit it. You
Yeah.
would you go home and listen to it? Would you just, or did you just like exit it from your life for a while?
I think that there was a few things happening at the same time where that kind of music started to, uh, I think it started to recede in the general popular culture, right? So we started getting a lot more hip hop, and we started getting a lot more crossovers, like,
Yep.
Run DMC and Aerosmith. And we had a
Hmm.
lot of those kinds of things where it was starting to get a little bit, the music scene was changing,
Yeah.
and the metal scene was starting to slow down, and there weren't as many great, amazing new bands.
Hmm.
People were getting really pissed off at a lot of these big headliners for selling out, quote unquote,
Right.
selling
Right.
out,
Right. The
right?
Black Album and
Yeah, exactly. And the concerts were changing, the concert lineups were changing. I just had this flashback of the Red Hot Chili Peppers playing at Great Woods down in um where is it, Foxborough
mm,
Stadium, and like they were people in the stands were ripping off, they were taking wood off the fence, and they would, like, they were making bonfires, and like it was crazy, things were just getting out of hand.
yeah, yeah,
um and so the lineups were changing, and the music scene was changing.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know that I would I was listening to it still, but I wasn't really, I had lost touch with my core group of friends where we'd all share and like, have you heard this one? And I found this other band, and I went to
Mm,
this shady little club, and I discovered this new music, and I got a tape at the table on the way out, kind of thing. And so that kind of stuff was not really around. And so you just kind of lose touch.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not like you can just turn on the radio and like, there's the
yeah.
new music. You had to go find it and seek it out and track it down and be with other people that were in the scene, and
Mm,
going to the shows and what have you. So it was always kind of, it was there, but it was like, it was away. It wasn't really there for me.
yeah.
And if I did go back to it, it was always like a history lesson. It was like, oh, I would go
Right,
back to the music that I used to listen to.
right, right.
And then it just got further and further and further pushed away,
Did it ever
and
come
pushed
back?
down.
Was there ever a moment where like something new came out or some whatever evolved model of what it was, three
Yeah.
generations later or whatever, where something came on and you went, "Whoa, this feeling again."
Yeah. I wish I could say, I know that I feel like there was, but I really don't remember like a specific moment where
Mm,
I just started, I just, I don't know if it was like I found a CD in my car in the trunk or something. It was like, oh, I remember this, eh, you
mm,
know, I remember this Iron Maiden, you know, album or CD or whatever. Um, it was pretty infrequent, and it was kind of those kinds of things like, oh, I'm in the mood,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
the mood for this kind of like chest pounding double bass, ear splitting music. Oh, I remember this one time talking about ear splitting music. I worked at Bose for 6 years, and like, talk about being around audiophiles all the time, and the variety of music that they played was just incredible. And there were a few folks that I would connect with that had the same kind of interest level that I did, but still never the same as it was when we were little, or little younger. I feel so old. Um, Coming into work one day, I was in one of those moods, and I had something blaring. It was probably Metallica, because that's usually my go-to, and it was on, I don't know, the top of the
11.
it was on 11. I'm driving through the parking lot, and I park, and I get out, so, turn the car off, get out, and there's a sound engineer standing there behind my car, waiting for me to get out of my car. And I literally got the finger waving, the finger wagging, like, don't you know what you're doing to your eardrums? Talk. I got a talking to.
Wow.
And it was the funniest thing, because I was, what, 20? I was in my late 20s at the time, mid to late 20s. And I'm just like, but it feels so good.
Right, right, right.
It's
Yeah.
like, okay, so I listened to some loud music for a 30-minute drive.
Right.
It's fine. And he was just chastising me for
Good.
listening to it so loud, and I'm like, but I'm in such a good mood now, and
Yeah.
you yelling at me doesn't even faze me right now.
Yeah, I can
It's like,
think
but it's
of
just,
driving is the only way for a long time was to like remain calm was to have loud music on.
yeah.
Not being annoyed. by other drivers,
Yeah.
especially in Los Angeles in the early 2000s when I was there. It was like, what is going on? I have to. But
Yeah.
the moments of coming back and going to these history lessons, there's a little bit of a story that I lost a lot of that, and then the Mars Volta came out, and I remember listening to the Mars Volta, and obviously a different genre. If you've ever heard of the At the Drive-In, that was their first little thing. This is the band that Beto used to be in a band with, like in El Paso, Texas.
Oh,
that everybody was all
interesting.
hung up about because he smoked dope once, and this was like the bandmates that evolved into this other band called the Mars Volta.
Okay.
And when I heard that, it reminded me so much of Metallica, because Metallica, what most people don't know, is there are all these other moments within a lot of their songs that it takes a break from that, right?
Melodic
it takes
and
such
harmonic
right
and
beautiful, wonderful music.
I mean, they are
shit,
incredible
right?
musicians. Yeah,
Right.
really
And
beautiful.
these breaks. And that's a lot of when I think of Metallica, I think of the arrangements of music and how that like hit in all parts. And so the Mars Volta,
I'd be like, I'm in the mood for the third song on this album today. And that's it. Just that one. I don't want to listen to like Call of Cthulhu or like some of these other ones that are like going to take me on a journey into outer space and I just calm me down. It's like, I want this, or maybe I'm in the mood for that.
Right.
That kind of music.
But so like thinking of that and getting it too. But then there was this point, you mentioned khakis. So
terrifying. Yes, I know. I haven't worn any
we
since,
talked about, but we talked about how, I worked in tech. And in, I think it was 2012 or 2013 ish, that I went to Salesforce's big mega conference called Dreamforce, and the headliner was Metallica.
I have told that story to so many of my friends that you've shared with me, and the picture of it is, go ahead, it's just incredible.
First I did like a total metal move, which was
they weren't the front row.
They weren't letting anybody else in. So like the official door, they weren't letting else in, but it's the Moscone Center. It's like an auditorium. So there's like bunches of doors. So I was just like, oh, dang it. Like the two like not even security guards. They're blocking the entrance and they're like, sorry, we can't let anybody else in. So I just wandered down to the like other down the hall and I'm pretending I'm on my phone. And as soon as somebody walks out, I'm like, straight in through the back. And they're like, hey, and I just disappear into the
crowd. Yeah.
And so I was like, rad, they haven't started yet. I'm here. And then,
but can we just take a moment? Can we just take a moment before you continue on your story? The juxtaposition.
Yes.
Can we talk about this?
That's exactly what I'm getting to.
Juxtaposition. Oh, okay. Or no, but not just at the very highest level, the juxtaposition of having a Salesforce, Dreamforce concert and having Metallica play at said concert is like, it broke my brain.
Right. So I was there in real time. Broken brain, because there are literally thousands of khakis and blue shirts.
Just
thousands.
Don't get it.
And I'm going, this is everything that those lyrics, like before they even comment, this is everything their lyrics are against. And for all of that time that, Lars especially was talking about the man and then Napster and all, like we hold this. And, but also being an adult and going like, and like, are you going to refuse that money? Like kind of holding those all at the same time.
Because they got called out in the 90s for selling out at MTV and all that stuff. And it's like, they had this great opportunity to to grow and be more of a well-known band,
Right.
and yet to get there
Yeah.
required some compromises,
Right.
and it was against some of the things that they had said. But anyways, that
Which
was
is
a little bit of a
adulting.
tangent.
But so of
Adulting, for sure.
course, the music it's a live performance. They're lights out. They're just, I don't know that there is a more prepared band in terms of like, they sound better live and they do not miss a note, a beat. They are just, so all of that was fine, but it's literally blue shirts, devil horns. And I wasn't in the front. I was doing my best to kind of only listen to the music. And then at the same time,
and forget where you were, like just try to not realize,
and
like
just going
acknowledge
like,
where you were.
it was making me rethink like my life. Like, where have I gotten to that this is where I am? And in the whole time
I'm seeing Metallica.
And the whole time I'm looking at James to see if there's anything in his face of going like, what the fuck? You know?
Yeah.
But do you know how they got it hooked up? Then this tells you even more of how ironic
How they got the gig.
How they got the gig. Yeah. Lars is neighbors with Mark Benioff, the CEO. And so it was just like walking the dog.
Getting the
do you
mail.
Want to play?
Getting the mail. Hey, so we have this event every year. We have this conference every year. Do you want to? Oh my goodness, could you?
And like right before this, Benioff was like doing the luau with like some famous. I mean, it was just. It was at this point, I think, really that I was like, I'm not made out for this part of it. I'm definitely not made out. I know 100% I'm never moving to San Francisco. Like, because this is like, I just can't be part of it. But fantastic show. Like,
good.
Just from a music perspective, like, fantastic.
Good.
What are you listening to these days?
So like I had said, kind of on that earlier trajectory about like the music staying with me and how I'd repressed it for a long time. Probably when right around the time that I started my business, I think a lot more of that side of me has been reemerging, and I've been rediscovering my love for that particular genre of music. And I'm bringing more of myself to the table as opposed to, and like rediscovering, a lot of these things that I liked, and trying to find other people that, birds of a feather, right? Trying to find these other people that are of a similar mindset. And I've connected with a lot of actually women drummers, which I'm super excited about.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Shout out to our friend Billy.
Yeah. Billy's a drummer?
Oh my God, she's incredible.
Well, I knew she was in band, and did all that. I had no idea she was a drummer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. I was getting lots of advice for a new throne from her, and oh yeah.
Well, now I think I know what I'm going to talk to Billy about.
I mean, she's so eclectic. She's got so many different amazing interests, but so nowadays it's still, I still go to the electronic house trance music for work, for deep thought work, where I can't have lyrics, because it gives me that drum beat, it gives me the energy, it gives me the motivation and the focus that I need to be able to knock a bunch of stuff out quickly and think through things. But like driving up here, I was like, well, of course I have to prepare, right? I have to get into the mindset. So I was definitely listening to, so here's the sign of the times, right? I was definitely listening to the heavy metal, playlist on Spotify on the car ride up. Right. So it's Tool, it was Pantera, it was Metallica, it was,
oh my
Tool
gosh,
is Tool's so amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Tool,
yeah.
I discovered Opiate in 96, right? So it was like my senior year of college. And I was like, what is this? But then I lived in the same neighborhood in LA, and would just like casually see them The
Well,
House
and
of
that's
Pies
so
or Fred 62 or something.
so that's the thing about Tool is that they refused to put their faces on any of their music videos so they wouldn't
Yeah.
be seen in public, like couldn't be recognized.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was as a fan incredibly frustrating, right? Like who are these guys? But also brilliant.
Right.
Because they could just live the life and blend in and not have to worry
Right.
about any of that stuff. And oh god, they're just
Right.
their music is amazing.
And right now I've just got just like I've got it in my head.
Yeah.
So the car is where you're listening to this music. Is that often the place?
Which is not heavily used during the pandemic. So I've had to find other outlets. But the drumming has definitely gotten me back into it. Playing a lot of that, listening to that, having a much more focused listening of the music to try to deconstruct it and really hear the drum lines a lot more. I've always been, like I said earlier, I was a huge fan of Lars and how he played. His stuff is so complex.
Right.
But more attentive kinds of listening these days, as well as just like, just feeling the music. And it's just such a, multi-sensory experience.
Right.
So the car, walking the dog, like this is so like old lady answers. Walking
Suburban
the dog,
answers.
at the grocery store. Yeah, suburban old lady answers.
Out
at the grocery store.
Out in Martha's Vineyard.
I mean, that's actually true. Going to the vineyard, don't see my family. And so flip the dynamics between going back to what we're talking about being at home with our parents and not having the ability to really. That's the way it is at home too with my kids, right? So it's like I'll put on. We just got a new Sonos. We got a new TV. We got a Sonos soundbar, and so the first thing I did was I played Tool 46 and 2. That was the very first song that I played, and of course I played it on their equivalent of 11.
Right.
Blew the house down, and the kids were like, "Turn it down! What are you listening to? This is so terrible! I can't play my video games." And I'm like, "No, you are going to listen to this music, and you're going to like it, and it's going to be amazing. You're going to feel it through the floors." And they were definitely hugely resistant. Fast forward to that wasn't the first time that I'd played that music for them. I'd played it in other times too, right? They knew I was a big Metallica fan. They're like, "Who's this Metallica nonsense? You have the t-shirts, you have the, you always talk about Metallica, you always talk about heavy metal, you talk about these different bands." And they're not into it. My 15-year-old is starting to listen to Beastie Boys and things like that. But fast forward to Stranger Things.
Yep. Yeah.
And when the season finale of whatever, season 4 or whatever it was, because I don't get a chance to watch TV with all the stuff going on in my life, but season 4 season finale comes out, and all of a sudden the everything explodes with Metallica, Master of Puppets. It's like this, and the whole Twitter and like all the 2022 social media platforms and every single thing is just exploding with all of this stuff around Metallica. And I'm like, what's happening? Right? Everyone's messaging me because I've been, like I said, kind of weaving more of this like part of my personality into my day-to-day life. And more people know that this is the music I'm passionate about. And this is what I do. And I play the drums and all these people are messaging me like, "Have you seen Stranger Things?" And I'm like, no, a little bit with my kid. My kids are starting to watch it. So then finally, my 2 older ones see the season finale. And then, like that, I'm the coolest mom on the planet.
Nice.
And suddenly they are super into everything, heavy metal, Metallica, and they want to know more. And yeah.
That's amazing.
Fascinating how pop culture has done that. Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's like their own MTV now. Like it's just a different thing. It hits them probably in the same way, but just that's brilliant. Well,
And and Metallica's made a huge resurgence, right? They're on tour
Yep.
all the time now, and they're
they
selling
have
places
ads
out.
about
And
their own app to make music. I don't know if you've seen these
I've seen
things.
those. Yep, yep. It's only
Yeah,
guitar though right now, so
I know. Yeah,
I haven't joined that. If Lars starts teaching something, I'm all over that. I'm like,
cool.
I'll just be like, take all my money. I don't
Yeah,
care. Just take it all. Come to my
jeez.
house and teach me. I don't care. Just like take all my money.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have one last question, and it might be a hard one. Top 5 songs of all time.
Top 5 songs. Okay, so definitely number 1 is Master Puppets.
Yep.
100%. Oh man, there's so many to pick from. If I could do it I could do
Cuff,
it really
off
easily.
the cuff. Yeah,
Off the cuff with just Metallica songs, right?
Yeah.
So there's like Bread Fan, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning. That's 4.
Yep.
What else? Enter Sandman. Those are some of my favorites. Beyond that, I can't remember. There's a couple of Disturbed songs that I really love, and then 46 and 2 from Tool. There's Anthrax has a bunch of songs that I really love. So I would stick with the first 5 that I listed from old school Metallica.
Brilliant. So those are the 5 that now post Stranger Things. You got to get the 5.
If you've never listened to Bread Fan and you want to kick in the pants of energy, it's just so full of it. So full of energy.
Yeah. Put some headphones on, close your eyes.
Garage Days Revisited too.
Oh,
man.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Oh my gosh, my friend. I'm so glad that you came up to Vermont, to this little place that we finally got to meet.
I have the most epic view. I mean, it's too bad this is an audio only channel, but I have this epic view of a silo and you know.
Yeah, it's video only. It's video too, but we're only seeing each other.
Right.
But yeah, somehow if I can convince everybody to come up to Vermont and hang out at our little place,
we need
I'm so glad that we
sort of
did
event
this.
that we get. You get people up.
Well, yeah, and you've been mentioning that for a while. That that's a thing that I think probably needs to happen. But I'm so grateful. I can't tell you how much this has lifted me up. That just to finally get to meet you and know that you're so close. And
so close.
So next, I just have to come down and have lunch with you.
Yeah, bring the kids. We can go walk around the North End in Boston too, and
brilliant.
Eat some Mike's pastry and go see the Paul Revere house and all that stuff.
Oh, my kids they're all about that stuff.
Let's do it, man.
It'll
be great.
Brilliant. My friend, we're going to go get some pears.
Let's do it. Yeah. Right off the tree outside.
Yeah, you're going to grab some pears and take them home. But thanks so much for hanging out. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. This has been super fun.
Yeah, Brad.
I'm glad I did it.
Okay.
I'm glad I came up.
Me too.